Frankly speaking, I'm here now. Let's run it. What it do, everybody? It's good to see those of you that already are coming in. I see you. I see you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight on this second episode of Frankly Speaking. Look, I got an amazing show tonight. I am your host, Frank Ray III, and this is Frankly Speaking. Do me a favor right now in the comment section. I want you to tell me where you're from. And if you're from Memphis, I want you to put the neighborhood that you're from. Do me just that favor. Comment in the comment section. Tag somebody. Share this video. Well, it's the day after election night, and we're almost there. It almost looked like we're going to have a new president. You know, some are excited about that, some are not. But I don't really want to focus on the president tonight. But what I do want to talk about is that no matter who the president will be, no matter who's elected president, whether it's Biden or whether it's Trump, I'm certain that some of us hope it's one more so than the other. I believe that we would be remiss if we were to just vote and be done. Just vote and that be it. That we still have a responsibility and a mandate to be active in our communities, to stay connected, to hold our politicians accountable for what they're promising us that they're going to deliver. We cannot afford this next 4 years, matter of fact, this next decade, to just vote and that be it. We got to put our feet to the ground. And I have some guests tonight who's going to help us deal with some of these issues and talk about some of these things in the Black community that need to be talked about. So do me a favor, tag 3 people, share this video. Let's run it.
Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom. The only way you can get freedom is to get it the same way the white man in this country got it from England, or he says he got it from England. He was willing to pay the price for freedom. When you're willing to pay the price for freedom, then you'll get it. But the Negro in this country has never been willing to pay the price for his freedom. The only way you can have peace is to eliminate those injustices, and the American white man is not going to eliminate them. He's going to talk that pretty talk, but he'll still continue to practice those inhuman deeds.
You know, this revolution is filled with so many ironies, really. First you tell us that it is manly to keep your word. All right? If you are a man, you keep your word. And now all that the black people in this country are demanding, and even the black people in the whole world are demanding, is that you keep your word. You told us we were free. Well then, show us that we're free. You told us that there is justice, equality for all in this country. Well then, stick to your word and let us see the justice and equality for all. Or else admit to us that you're not a man, you're a worm, you're afraid of us, you're afraid to give us equal stand. You're afraid that if you give us equal ground that we will match you and we will override you.
Wow. Welcome everybody. How y'all doing?
Good.
Well, let's get started. I don't want to hold you long. My first guest has already complained about 4 times tonight about the time that we're starting. And so let me introduce them to you. On, I don't know how it looks on your screen, but in one corner next to me is the esteemed Reverend Right Doctor Earl Fisher, Earl the Pearl Fisher. That's my brother. I love him. I'm grateful for him. Earl, tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, if you don't mind.
Man, thanks for having me, Trey. I appreciate it, and good to
Yeah.
be with these wonderful people, some of whom I'm meeting for the first time. I'm Dr. Earl Fisher, Senior Pastor, Abyssinian Baptist Church in Memphis, a church that's unapologetic in our commitment to social justice and Black liberation. As such, we are affectionately referred to as the Blackest Church in Memphis and Shelby County, and that's the title that we wear proudly. I'm also the founder of Up the Vote 901, nonpartisan collaborative that's committed to giving more power, information, and representation to more people and increasing voter turnout in Memphis and Shelby County in every election. So glad to be with y'all.
That's what's up.
Even past my somewhat bad time.
Oh my God. We're not gonna do this all night.
Put me in C sharp, baby. That's my key. I'm right.
Listen, in my other corner next to me, I got my brother, my friend, whom I met a long time ago. We were in high school actually when we first met. He was in Northside, I was in Melrose, and we actually just reconnected this summer, doing some things together. I seen him up close and in action. I was actually very impressed, and his ability to communicate and talk to people in need and in distress. I've been with him on a random day, just feeding people who were in need, at his call. And so I really appreciate him for doing this for me tonight. He is the one and only famous Amos. Famous Amos, just tell the people who just so happen to not know who you are, what you do.
Um, I'm a activist, entertainer, comedian, entrepreneur. I'm kind of a little bit of everything. I'm from Smoky City, North Memphis. Graduated from Northside High School. Graduated from Mississippi Valley State University down in the Delta, Mississippi. Um, I do it all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you name it, I do it. Yeah.
Well, appreciate you, Amos, for being on tonight.
hmm
In my bottom, my last brother that's on tonight. This is my brother, who I actually call my friend. Uh, whenever we connected uniquely, he came and did something for us, and I was the one driving him around, and our conversations just were enriching and refreshing, and we connected on many levels, on many things. We have the same background in many ways, and my churchy people on here know who he is. The famous, the famous Ted from Ted and Sherry is on the call tonight. Ted, tell him who you are, what you doing, man.
Um, First of all, I'm glad to be here with all of you. Thank you, Trey, for having me on. My name is Ted. I'm originally from Memphis, born and raised. And as a quick aside, to Dr. Fisher, to be the blackest church in Memphis, you got to be really black. You got to be really black. I'm here for all of it. I started in my career, obviously, in gospel music, which I still do, and have expanded that into justice work and activism and trying to educate people who are, at least in my sphere of influence, about the importance of being engaged on the issues that affect us all and being committed to issues that help uplift marginalized people, working to deconstruct systems that adversely affect and harm a lot of us, Black people specifically in this country. So I'm glad to be a part of this conversation, and hopefully can share something, can learn something that helps to move us forward.
That's what's up. Then last but not least, the essence in the room tonight, the solo woman who's on the call tonight. I had a whole panel of women last week, but I just got one tonight. Our Tennessee state representative out of Memphis. She was just officially reelected last night, so I'm honored to have her with us tonight, Miss London Lamar. London, Tell us
Hey,
who you are, what you're doing. Hey, hey.
hey. Look, I don't mind being the only girl in the room. I'm used to it. Welcome to the legislature. Okay. So I always hold it down for the ladies. But no, it's such an honor to be here with you today. And if I'm not mistaken, your dad's church is in my district. So church does sit in my district, and I'm so thankful to be reelected to my second term to the legislature. I'm now no longer the youngest legislator, but I'm the youngest woman serving in the General Assembly. So it's a extreme honor to hold it down for my generation, hold it down for young Black women, make sure we have a voice in the state capitol. And I'm just excited about being able to go back in January, get some good stuff done. I do understand that we are in a difficult time in America, and I also understand my responsibility to bring comfort, love, support, and understanding to the people that I represent, and I'm here to do that.
That's real. Thank everybody for being on tonight, even at this late hour, Reverend Fisher specifically. So look, let's start with a little education. Let's educate the people. Representative Lamar, what exactly is a state representative and what do you do?
Awesome. That's a great question. So a state representative is someone who serves in the Tennessee State House. Everybody know what Congress is, right? You got your House of Representatives, you got your Senate. You have the same makeup on the state level. So I serve in the state house. There are 99 districts across the state of Tennessee. I represent District 91. Each of our districts holds 65,000 people. And as a state legislature, I say the biggest role for us is to act the gatekeeper between the federal government and local issues. Anything that trickles down from the federal government has to come through the state level before it touches the city. And so what that means is when it comes to education, a lot of people only focus on the presidency and what Congress is doing. Well, really, they just pass overarching bills, overarching rules. They set expenditures, which are budget items to sit down to be sent out to local municipalities. So when that federal money hits the state legislators and state senators oftentimes put their regulations and their restrictions on how we best use this money. We had the biggest impact on the criminal justice system for anybody outside of a district attorney. We had a huge impact on education. Why? Because most of the crimes that Black people are getting arrested for are state crimes, such as drug crime, homicides, murders, those type things. Those are all at state level issues. And so change state laws, we are able to reform the criminal justice system. For example, why half the states in the country got legalized marijuana and half of them don't? Is because on the state level, our legislature won't legalize it. And so that's the problem. And so that's one of the main reasons why Black people going to jail. So a lot of people look for my job. They think it's not important. They think it's this little cute name or whatever it is. She doing what she want to do on her little social media or whatever. But really, like, I have huge implications on Black people's ability to live. And, really rechannel that energy, use Trump in his presidential election, media spotlight, people paying attention to then channel the conversation about, if you're really pissed off about what Trump is doing, then you need to be hollering at me.
Okay. So that leads me to my first question. I did a little poll of people that I knew questions that they would want to ask the panel. Here's the first question. Black people are often admonished to vote as a means of creating change. However, some feel that their vote has enacted little change. How do you prevent political apathy?
This is my question.
That's it. Anybody on the panel can jump in here.
Because
and then I'm gonna throw it out to y'all because I feel like I can only speak to one lane, and I think that all the rest of you can articulate the others. I feel like politics isn't the only way to make change. Is one of the many ways you need to make change. So I recognize what my skill set is, what I'm passionate about, and focus on that lane. I'm not trying to be over here doing this or doing that or trying to be the rapper or the pastor or the activist. I'm the politician. And I take my role in the overall strategy to rebuild and reform this system and focus on there. And so what Black people, in my opinion, in our community got to be okay is understanding and valuing everybody's role in pushing the Black agenda forward. I know my lane, and I just support everybody else's lane and how they want to do it. But you can't vote. You can't leave out voting. It has to be something that's a part of the overall strategy. And I'm gonna throw it to everybody else.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna let y'all.
Cause my approach with change, bro, don't have nothing to do with the president, point blank, period. See, mine come from, me putting in, effort in the community, like, mentoring the youth, putting them on the right path. So, if you look in all the hoods now in Memphis, they have no mentorship no more. But they don't have the community center like they used to. They don't have the Boys and Girls Club and stuff like that to mentor the kids. So that's where me as a public figure come in, go out there and reach out to those kids and show them there is a better way than the murdering, robbing, gang banging, and all that type stuff, bro. So that's my way that I change the African American community, bro. I don't look forward for politicians or the government to make changes for me, though, honestly.
So I guess my question within that is, what would you say to a Black person who's saying it don't really matter if I vote because my vote ain't changing nothing?
Well, I think that's a great question. I'm sorry, were you gonna speak to that? I didn't mean to cut you off. I think that the thing is this. We have to understand that to the points that have been made, voting is not the tool, but it is a tool. And it's not, and sometimes we talk about voting as if it is the beginning and the end of the process, right? Just voting, that's all you have to do. That's not all you have to do. That's the doorway. That's the entryway into the process. And understanding the political mechanism that we have, understanding how to wield political power. Politics, based on some people's definition, is a negotiation of power. That's really what we're talking about. And so when we talk about why do people vote, I try to make it draw an example where people can understand how it affects them directly, right? So, case in point, I have a friend in California who said, I'm not into politics. What you're making? He's a musician. I said, do you have a car? And he said, yes. Do you get an emissions test? Yes. What determines, or who determines, if you pass or fail the emissions? He was like, probably a politician. Yeah, there is. Because they're trying to protect the quality of air that you actually breathe. When you go to your water faucet and you turn on water, is the water clean or do you have lead like in Flint, right? The reason they have lead in Flint is because a politician made a certain decision. When you hit a pothole in the street, is your car fixed? That's something that in your local municipality or your state, if you're on a highway or interstate, that's going to be determined by that. Taxes. When you get on an airplane, is it safe to fly? That's an FAA decision. That's a political organization. It's a government institution. So we have to help people understand when it comes to how we vote. And when you talk about people like Representative Lamar here, who, as she said, shapes laws, right, that impact how you are dealt with if you are engaging police for one example. When you think about who makes the laws, those are people we vote for. When you think about who determines what sentence you get or not, that's a judge. A judge is either elected or appointed by a politician. And so we have to help people understand the way that the political system affects every area of your life, from the quality of air you breathe to how much money comes out of your check for taxes, to any grievances that you have. And so we have to be committed to this system. We have to not just vote. We have to hold politicians accountable when we do vote. If you feel like they're not getting it done, then you run for office, right? You have to really engage the system because it is the mechanism that we have to wield power in this country.
And let me build on some of the metaphors Brother Ted put out there. So even if I'm with Brother Amos insofar as, people got to do what they got to do to kind of sort of straighten things out in their own neighborhood, that's true. Right. But think about it like the starfish on the seashore. For people who've never heard about that, that's where they talk about somebody's going by because a bunch of starfish have been washed up on the seashore and they grabbing them one by one and tossing them back into the water. And then somebody comes along and says, you're not going to be able to do none of all of these starfish. And then somebody grabs another one and tosses it in and says, but I made a difference to that one. And that's supposed to be a nostalgic type thing where you clap and say, yeah, you did make a difference. But the reality is this: why were there so many starfish that were washed up on the seashore in the first place?
Yeah.
Who is controlling the atmosphere? Who is controlling the wind and the water that's making the waves come up so much? Because starfish don't belong on the seashore. And so we can sit up here and talk about how many of us are tossing starfish in one by one, but unless we start asking the structural and systemic questions, the environmental questions about how did this happen? So if you don't have the community centers like Amos said, why don't you? If you don't have adequate schools, why don't you? If you got lead in your water, to Ted's point, why do you? Right. And so what you find is this: the general correlation between the number of people who have been involved in an election and what their neighborhood looks like is very telling. Where you have high turnout in elections, where you have high electoral participation, you usually have high quality support from the governmental entity. Where you have low turnout, you usually have poverty, you usually have economic injustice, you usually have racial injustice, and a whole lot of police in that. So there's a reason that is like it is. And we can say, and it's true, that electoral politics is not the be all and end all. It is not. It's actually not the ceiling of civic engagement. It's the floor, or if I'm from Michigan, it's the basement. But if you don't do that, then you end up hamstringing yourself such that you're going to be ended up being double taxed. And I'm talking about double tax in terms of your time, double tax in terms of your talent, and double tax, yes, in terms of your treasure.
Yeah. Man, this is good already. Listen, do me a favor, share this conversation. We gonna get some stuff done tonight. This is a needed conversation. So what do you say to the young radical who is extremely involved in activism, but is saying that there's no way possible that we can build ourselves up in a system that was meant to suppress us and tear us down? How do you reach that person?
Honestly, it's hard reaching somebody with a mindset like that, bro. That is very complicated, bro. Been there 1,000 billion times. And we protest a whole 3-4 months straight. And we ran into those type of people a lot. You know? And there was people who was out there protesting with us doing the George Floyd and the Breonna Taylor thing. That was still felt like, hey, I'm just out here because my people are here. I'm just trying to make sure my people don't get hurt, man. But I don't believe it's gonna change nothing.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say London. I think London was about to say so. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, sis.
Sorry.
Yes. So, I want to agree with Amos that that's one of the hardest things to do, especially even as a young person, former president, Tennessee Young Democrats. My job was to travel across the state to get young people to vote. And until a few things, something so tragic to them happens that they realize the impact of politics, they'll get involved. Until they see how their dollar is impacted by politics, they'll get involved. Or it's going to take something so catastrophic that they are going to finally be able to see the connection. But it's hard to tell someone who doesn't have food, who's struggling, who's been on the opposite end of the system, that they should care. It's like the system don't care about me, so why should I transition my vote? And I get that sometimes. Like, I'm no longer mad at these young people. Like, I get it. Like, life is hard. And when you're sitting here trying to find out how you eat your next meal, like, I really can't judge you for not caring about voting. Like, you got to eat. And it's hard for you to focus on that when your basic needs are not taken care of. But that's why I take my job so seriously, because I understand that everyone doesn't have the privilege to be so engaged, to be so educated, because life is hard on them right now. And so it's important to get people like me who's had these lived experiences, like the people in my community, to get up there and advocate for them while they are just trying to survive.
Yeah, man. My experience has been different than Amos and London. I don't have problems talking to these folks. I just haven't. Maybe I'm as much of a radical as anybody else, so they identify with me in a certain way. Or it could be that I just got access to a particular shelf of knowledge where I don't feel intimidated like many people do to have a conversation with them on the merits of the argument. And when you start listening to their logic, if you follow their logical pattern down the road of logic, to some point you're going to end right where London says. So when you say to us, we need to have our own things. Okay, explain to me this, brother. How we going to have it if you pay? when Ted said something about the cars, what I started thinking is, this is what I ask everybody who they say something about they vote the car. I say, you pay taxes, don't you? You buy clothes, don't you? You buy gas, don't you? You buy groceries, don't you? Where does that money go? Oh, that money going to a pot. Who decides what happens with that money? Oh, people who are elected to office, or people who are appointed by people who are elected to office. So you mean to tell me now, if you're participating in local elections, then 30% of the people are deciding what's happening with 100% of the money. So now I got to pay my taxes, right? This is what I say to the revolutionaries, because I'm a revolutionary. I got to pay my taxes to this entity. My folks don't make livable wages because we can't get laws passed. We got to work 6 jobs to make ends meet. We can't pay for childcare. We can't pay for health care. Now I got to take the little money I make, and you telling me it's going into the system, but I ain't got no control over what's happening in that system. Now I got to spend some more money that I don't have to invest in another system over here. Come on, nationalists, brother. It just don't add up. Do the math for me. See, then I'm just asking basic math questions. Do the math for me. And then when it gets to that point, it's usually a pause back like, because I'm not saying that this system will save us, though. And I'm not saying that we invest in it blindly to the degree by which we feel like Biden or Trump or whoever else is going to be the answer for us. Ain't nobody going to save us but us. But it does mean the way that we organize has to be walking and chewing gum at the same time. So that by the time you got enough resources to throw more starfish back into the sea, you ain't sitting up here starting from square one with the wind blowing in your face while you're trying to do it.
And I think that's a great answer, Earl. But
that's good, man.
Like, what do you say to the person in the community who see the president of the United States, who's a millionaire, only paying $750 in taxes, and you got the McDonald's worker paying 4-5 times that in taxes? Can you tell me what you would say to them?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is I can't say it exactly on Frank's show, but if I was on mine,
no, you can say it. This ain't the churchy play. Go on, say it. Say it. I told Amy. Say it, Reverend. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And that is thank you. Up, right. So the first thing you do is you legitimize and justify the frustration and the anger because it's legit. Yeah. There's a reason people feel that way. So I don't feel like I have to disarm. And you know what? You're right. And I can't see why. But wait a minute. How do we decide how much tax rates are? Who decides that? Then I start asking questions. I told you it's a shelf of knowledge that's available. And sometimes what happens is we act like all that we know is all that there is to know.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you start having a dialogue with folks, when you legitimately hear folks out, so you say, you're right. How much do you think he should be paying? So if you were in control, how would you go about doing it? This is the
everybody paying $750. That's it.
Okay, right. Okay. And then you say if everybody's paying say $750, can you pay for school? If everybody's paying $750, is everybody's trash going to get picked up? If everybody's paying $750, is the air going to be clean? Is the water going to be clean? All this other stuff. Is there going to be adequate public safety apparatus? All of these things are questions that you ask people to explain. So when we do our organizing conversations up to Vote 901, these are the conversations we have all day long. Explain it to me. If you got the power, because niggas ain't used to having nobody's power. Okay. Yeah. And so when Ted is right, politics are about negotiations of power. And the reason black folks don't like to talk about it, because black folks in this country ain't accustomed to having no power.
Come on, now.
I love it. I just want to just say, since we having a dialogue, like I'm with it. And so let's specifically talk about money. And I want to pause there, not to take over, but because I want to address something, especially the difference in how black men and black women think about how we need to vote and what policies we support. And as what you're seeing in this Trump election is a split based on this talk about money, as you've seen with Ice Cube and 50 tax rate and stuff like that. So on the flip side, you got Democrats like ourselves who believe in taxing because we need to fund these government services that service many of our community members, right? However, the Republican framework is cut taxes. You cut taxes, that's less government services for folks like us. However, you cut taxes, we save money too. What do you do when, I know how I do, but what do you do when, okay, I want to cut taxes to save people having a paychecks and more money in their pocket. However, is our community organized enough to make sure we have sustainable infrastructure?
No. And And you know
that's
that
the
Democrats
argument.
know. Hold on, no. Come on, sis. You know me better than this. You know that the Democrats know we ain't organized for it either.
Man, come
So
on,
don't
man.
act like some general Democratic thrust ain't a real neoliberal thrust, which ultimately says, yeah, we're gonna find another way to stack up more money and then take it away from black folks in black neighborhoods. We don't even have enough congressional control at the state level or at the federal level to be talking about it like these tax breaks are ultimately to help black folks. That ain't
I
necessarily
ain't saying that.
okay, because
I'm not saying that
Yeah.
tax
maybe I misheard you, sis.
black folks, but what I'm saying is if we were all to reduce the amount of taxing on all people, which helps benefit black people, paychecks, but then are we really gonna do the work to make sure we're bringing in our systems? And so one end, when I talk to business people and black folks, they're like, you're taxing us too much. All of these other things that they have an issue with, they're not bringing enough money home. But what I'm saying is, it's like, okay, well, what you gonna do about the schools? What you gonna do about this? And so we're oftentimes caught in the middle as black people about this whole issue about how we need to go and advocate because neither one of us are doing it on each side.
I'm gonna digress. And Pat, because I know Ted wanted to say something.
Ted, hop in here. Hop
Go
in
ahead,
here.
Ted.
I'm enjoying this conversation. I think that, I think that the taxation conversation is frankly, these nuances I feel are frankly a distraction from the things that we really need to talk about when we talk about substantive change inside of our communities and what we really need. When we're having these conversations around what people need every day, I think we need to be talking more about like having a living wage, right? How we can get people to where they need to be, because if you look at America, America is capitalism on steroids. And so when you look at this particular system that we are a part of, that we live in, the resources that we need to fund these programs is available. But when you have organizations like Amazon paying zero in federal taxes, then that's when you
crazy.
disparity.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
And
crazy.
so again, to the point that everybody's made, is we have to be very particular about how we educate our people. And I love what Dr. Fisher said, because I find myself having similar conversations, and I really think it's more helpful to ask people questions and to kind of tell them how they're wrong and how you feel, and to get them to try to think about the things that they're standing for, and to ask them questions that would cause them to have to defend their positions. Because most times, I won't say most times, a lot of times people don't think deeply about these things. And we don't understand the inner workings of how the system works. And so, again, I think it is incumbent upon all of us who care about justice to do our part, to learn, to teach, and to educate, so that we empower the people in our communities who look like us to understand how we can wield our power. How can we negotiate the power that we do have in order to get the change that we deserve in our communities? And so I think that when we're talking about, taxing, it's a fair question to ask, but I think that we have to kind of back up from that and look again how the system of capitalism, because that's only one facet of it, is working.
Or Ted, let's think about who we're talking to when we're talking about taxation. Okay, who are we centering in that conversation? London, how many people in your district are homeowners? What percentage? Okay, so when we start talking about taxing, generally what we're talking about is real estate taxes, right? Most of us in Memphis and Shelby County don't own a home. You ain't talking to us. You ain't talking to us. But
you are talking to voters.
Yeah. So look, I agree. Especially,
right.
You know what? Because and I need the whole audience to know, London and I, that's my sister, right? Like we was together yesterday at the Up the Vote thing. We talk like this all the time, okay? So I don't want y'all to think he was coming from London. No.
Look, I can handle mine. Come on.
But look,
we saying this in love.
Yeah, look, you're right. You're talking about voters, but the majority, you're talking about super voters. You're talking about the main ones that y'all target. Y'all, generally speaking, politicians.
So can I ask you, what is a super voter?
I'll break it down for you, Amos. These are the people who have participated regularly in every election over the past 3 elections, right?
Okay.
But what they do is when people start trying to canvass or people start trying to engage voters, they start focusing on the super voters because they feel like if they can get them, they increase their likelihood of getting elected, right? Now, here's the challenge with that, though. So the super voters generally are people who own a home, people who are relatively educated, the more
Gotcha.
affluent folks, right? Now come on to Memphis and Shelby County. Okay, we got 590,000 people registered to vote. How many of them you think is homeowners? Not the majority of them, right? How
Most
many
of them renting.
there you go.
Yeah.
Right. So and so my broader point is kind of building on what I feel like Ted was saying. Ted, correct me if I misinterpret what you were saying, though. It's like it's a stronger conversation to have when you're talking about the widest voter base possible, and not just the wider voter base, the widest base of citizens, even people with felonies who can't vote in Tennessee because ain't no law been passed, still care about what their wages are when they come home. But if you start talking to them about taxation, so we could talk about Ice Cube and 50 and Kanye. Them niggas is in a different tax bracket. Okay, you ain't talking.
That, but you got to
Yeah.
also, but they do understand what taxes are, and they do see that money coming out their paycheck, and they do care about where that's going and how that's impacting them. And at the end of the day, when we use taxes, it's hitting them first. And so my problem is, what I'm saying is that the system is built right now through the one act, not the whole system. One form of abusing our people is through taxation. And the fact that we are witnessing a white man get off from being abused the way our people are getting abused is problematic.
But I
And
guess I'm sorry.
Go
One
ahead.
of the things I would ask though is, is there any data point that we have when we're talking about people who live at a certain social economic level? Like, how much of that money are they getting back? Because when I was growing up poor in Memphis, everybody I knew got a tax refund. So even if we're talking about taking money out of your check, because Tennessee still doesn't have state income tax, right?
No, we took it away.
Yeah. Oh, they had it? They brought it?
No, we used to have it. It's gone.
Oh, okay. When I was growing up, they didn't have it. So I guess it came and went away. But like,
It's been gone.
you have what's happening on the federal level. And so I think you have to look at it again in totality. Like, what are we really talking about? Like, are we really talking about people feeling like I don't make enough money and you're taking from me anyway, even though I'm getting some of that back? Or should we be really refocusing the conversation on how do we get people to make a living wage so people don't feel like they're struggling and people can live, can not be impoverished? And I think that again is a part of the education conversation when we're talking about how we do this in our communities and how we again engage these systems and why it's important for us to be politically astute as much as we possibly can. Whatever issues people have, we have to be able to speak to those issues and help them understand how the political system does or does not impact or affect them so we can get people engaged. And I think that's part of really what the whole agenda, I would think, should be, is how do we get more people engaged, especially the people who are the most adversely affected by whatever happens in this country, most specifically through policy and law.
Amos, you worried about taxes?
Yes.
And not at all.
Yeah. So I mean, when somebody says something about race, I think the bottom line of taxes is you want everybody to pay their fair share.
Right.
You want everybody to pay their fair share so that everybody could have access to the stuff that they need. Mm-hmm. And what I think most economists would argue is that it's not a taxation on poor folks that's needed. It's taxation on rich folks that's needed. It's not that poor folks ain't paying their fair share in taxes. It's that rich folks thing. So Ted, even you, I think, brought up earlier, I wanted to say AutoZone, it wasn't AutoZone, but Amazon pays zero in taxes. Come to Shelby County. How much is FedEx paying in taxes? How much is Elvis Presley Enterprises paying in taxes? And then how much do they get in tax breaks?
Yeah.
So where the people who I've been talking to hang their hat is, hey, they should be paying more.
But I think it goes back to the point that I think London is underscoring. They're not paying more. Why aren't they paying more? And so when we start to have a conversation about why they're not paying more, it's because of lobbyists and because these are the people, to your point that you made, Dr. Fisher, these are the people who are politically astute, people who are affluent, and people who understand who writes the laws. Like tax power is based on
I found out.
Yeah.
My ability to pay people more is about the paycheck. I haven't seen many Black people lately tap into the conversation until we start talking about taxes. And when 50, and when we talk about their money. So
they're green.
The two we're saying we're mutually exclusive. I think they have to do those simultaneously. But what I'm saying is, it goes back to my point earlier. People aren't tapping into politics, so they worry about their paycheck. So we want them to tap into the political system. Let's start talking about some paychecks, and then how we gonna save them some money, how the system is not abusing their money, and then we can go from there. Because I can't fathom. I mean, I don't want nobody paying a whole bunch of taxes, especially the poor and the middle class who hold up the system in Texas anyway. But why the system ain't working? And so then you hear stuff like Donald Trump paying $750, and people like, why am I voting? Like doing what they want to do anyway. They take him out checks anyway. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So we gotta move. Time is fleeting. We gotta move. But Amos, can you stay with me a little longer? Yeah, you got me. Give me another 15 minutes. If I could ask, what are, because all of you are astute on this phone, what are three policies that if we can get them changed and implemented for the Black community would be life-changing for us in the next 10 years? What are three policies that we should focus on that would be meaningful? Yeah, on a national scale, just for Black people in general.
Well, that's tough.
Well, I started by saying you should focus on local policies primarily. And I think London actually describes the importance of that. Like, you could get federal dollars, but federal policies generally don't override what's happening locally. There are three things, and we've been talking about it with Up to Vote 901, and people could go and look at the Memphis People's Agenda if you want to. There are sections that talk about things that are important. Here go three simple things, though. Ted is already on it. Livable wages, right? Pass livable wages as a law, right? Pass affordable and accessible health care as a law, and pass equitable contracting as a law. That Black businesses need to get their fair share of government contracts, point blank, period. I mean, that'll change the landscape in 3 to 5 years, let alone 5 to 10.
Red, why you on the board, Red?
Sorry, go ahead.
Now I'm gonna ask Red, why you ain't in the board, like the Shelby County board? Why you not on the board?
Well, I don't know what I think you're asking. If why am I not an elected official? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, like you definitely be heard, bro, because that's exactly what we need. Do I can make some phone calls for you, bro?
No, because so I want you to hear what I'm about to say real clearly. And Ted, I want you to use this. Okay, you can give me credit the first time.
Yeah.
I will.
Amos, pastor is a public office. Okay, so I'm supposed to be up to speed on some of this stuff because I care about what's happening to my people. Right?
That's real.
It don't mean that I have to be elected to a governmental office. London has told you she's a politician. I'm not. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, but what I am doing, I'm committed to organizing and engaging in the political education that our people need so that they will be up to speed on this stuff. I don't have to be on the school board, on a city council, on the county commission, or the mayor. I don't have to be none of that stuff to do this part, right? Because then when you're in that office, you got to spend more time dealing with some of the bureaucracy and the political shenanigans. I ain't got time for all of that. My filter is
Earl has so much autonomy and freedom to really push the Black agenda further than I can, because I have to have a decorum. I have to watch what I say, because if say one of my more racist colleagues find this video and hear me talking about Black stuff, they'll kill my bill.
Yeah, I was so wondering that too.
So I mean, I'm at the point where I don't really care right now. We in the age of Trump, so they've done some racist stuff. I called back on them. But what I'm trying to say is, like, everybody got to be okay with their role in this work, and own that role, and support. Like, I love the fact Earl can say things that I can't say, and he can really take it there, and it doesn't cost him any implications. Versus, I called Tennessee racist. My video went across the world, and now I was called a racist before calling it racism. And so, we just got to be okay with doing that, So I need you to get on some videos, make some funny stuff about politics, make it understandable, break it down.
I'm in the same boat you in, though. I can't. With us, man, with public figures like that, we can't even say our whole career snatched with blackballed. You don't even understand. We got to walk on eggshells just like y'all.
Right.
Well, I want y'all to be clear. It ain't that I ain't got to sacrifice nothing.
Right.
You know, I could have been at a mega church by now if I was preaching what John Gray was preaching. Okay, it's a cost. It's the cost to saying.
And you have the accolades, you have the degrees to
Yeah,
get any
yeah,
job you want in America. Let's be clear.
Yeah, man, you got to be clear. Like everybody, everybody got to count the cost. So, and I'm not telling you, Amos, or I ain't told nothing to go out and, risk it all.
Yeah.
That you don't do calculated risk. But what I'm saying is, all of us who take a stance like this have something to risk. There's going to be some power. I done had people leave my church. I've been called a race beta, or some black preacher called me a black beta, or some stupid stuff like that. And so some of that stuff just comes with the territory. My bad.
Yeah.
Ted, you about
Before
I digress.
Well, I was
go
gonna
ahead,
say,
T.
my I love this. My policy position is a bit more radical, but kind of inclusive of what people are talking about. So the thing for me is reparations, and everybody has their definition. So mine is a multi-pronged approach, and I feel like what Black people in this country who are descendants of enslaved Africans should have is we should be exempt from state and federal taxes. I would drill down on that if we have more time in terms of the why. We should have access to free college education from public schools. We should have a guaranteed percentage of ownership in legal cannabis. And then of the tax revenue that is generated from legal cannabis, a percentage of that should be directed specifically to Black communities. We should have zero interest home loans. We should also have money that's directed to our community to help with business development, right? And to help build up our own communities. Because the challenges that we have, after 401 years of this are deeply systemic, and there's really, based on some data points that I've looked at, there's really no way to kind of close the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, and really fix this disparity without us being repaired effectively, right, from the injuries that we've endured over hundreds of years in this country, and that we still endure. Right, we've been deeply injured, so I think you have to speak specifically to that. And so what happens a lot of times with politicians, Democrats and Republicans, is the approaches that they have are kind of like this, we're going to do something for everybody, right? And then Black people will, by default, be a part of that. But you can't specifically injure me and then not specifically do something that's going to help cure that, right? So
that's good. Yeah.
Targeted specifically in this country for hundreds of years. And so the policies that come forward that help us or that would help us have to be specifically geared to our community, because there's no other people group in America who has our particular narrative.
That's good. You gone, Amos?
Oh no, I was just saluting what he said. Like,
why you on this phone before you go? Since I got a pastor on the phone, I'm about to come for you for a minute.
Right.
While we was together this summer.
Oh yeah. Boy.
You was real hard on the church, brother.
I was, boy.
And I'm not saying that some of your harshness was not justified.
Right.
Why we got another pastor on the phone? Because I'm gonna let him speak.
Which one you talking about, me or Ted?
Ted is not a pastor.
I think he's talking about you.
I'm talking about Earl. What are some of your, when it comes to activism, when it comes to being involved? Because I remember you specifically saying where the church at, where the pastors at, what are they doing? Basically, where these niggas at? So I want you to talk. I want you to talk to it tonight.
I majored in history, bro, and I know how dear the church, have uphold the Black community, bro. At that time of need, during the whole protest thing with George Floyd, none of the Black churches was out there to support us. None of the churches, bro. Now, I will say the members of the church, they chose to do, they little things or whatever. But when we talking about the head of the churches, like, you have power to just snap your finger and your congregation is going to follow. Most of the, the pastors and the reverends and stuff like that. But they chose to come out a day on their own, you know what I'm saying, they do their own protests, which I found like, wow, okay, so y'all couldn't protest with the people. Y'all wanted to, decide to protest on y'all own. That did not sit well with me at all.
Yeah.
We had the LGBT community out there. It was mostly white people who was protesting throughout
I
that
saw it for myself.
whole little month. It was nothing but white people in the LGBT. I felt like, wow, we fighting for us. Well, they fighting for us, and we're not even fighting for ourselves. So I don't get it. And I go to the churches, I go to my Masonic lodges and all that, and say, why are y'all not out here? Like, what is the problem? What is stopping you guys from fighting for us? Because we're the one who's enduring this, police brutality, that's going through all this madness. Why are we not out here on the front line? Why are they fighting for us? This is not their job. This is our job.
Hey, Amos, I don't know what Frank thought I was gonna say, but you right, and that nigga know you right. Okay,
Yes.
the vast majority of
That's what I
churches
said.
and church folk ain't out there, in part because their theology is of a white God and a white Jesus. So now they think this white system is right, and they don't need to do nothing in response to it except for pray and wait for their white Jesus to come save them.
Earl, you really
Like,
saying this on this thing like this?
Yes.
this nigga don't know who I am, do you?
Yeah, nigga, I don't know who you. I thought you was ready.
But here's the other thing though. So first I wanted to make sure I validated that critique.
Okay.
I also, because I said something earlier, like, sometimes all we know we think is all that is.
Yeah.
So let's put the Floyd demonstrations on the shelf for a second. There were several other demonstrations over the last several years, demonstrations associated with Darius Stewart.
Right.
When he was killed, demonstrations associated with removal of the Confederate monuments, all kind of demonstrations. The bridge demonstration in 2016. You familiar with any of them?
Oh yeah, all of them.
Were pastors there?
No,
You sure?
not that I saw. Not as a unit.
Oh, okay.
Now,
So then,
individuals-
okay, cool. So if that's the
individuals-
case, yeah. So if you're going from a unit standpoint, I can hear that, right? Then you would have to ask the question. The biggest protest was the bridge protest. They said it was 2,000 people. Usually people say less than that. Now, how many black folks in the city of Memphis? 450,000 black folks in the city of Memphis.
Wow.
So out of 450,000 black folks, you had 2,000 down there, less than 2,000. Well, that seemed like black folks ain't moving in the unit. Because if you're going with percentages, you got 4,000 churches in the city of Memphis.
Correct.
So by the time you probably got 10 or 15 preachers down there, and I can name them, and I got pictures of them, especially when we was removing the statues, because I was helping to organize some of them. It ain't that some haven't been down there. It's that a lot of times the demonstrations that we go to, not we the preachers, like the demonstrations people go to, if you don't see a particular pastor, then you feel like the black church ain't represented there. But I'm saying that there's a lot of pastors who are engaged in the struggle, male and female. And I'm talking about black folks. There's a lot of pastors engaged in this struggle in some unique ways. Some are more out front and on the front line. Some make their moves on the back. And then some, you got to deal with the reality of the nuances, man. You got folks who have health disparities. Maybe that's why some of them went out there in the midst of COVID, right?
Yeah.
George Floyd. But then here's where so that was the sidebar. I'm gonna circle back to right where you were, because again, you're right. Too many pastors don't know how to follow, especially in spaces where they're not equipped to lead. And since most pastors haven't been trained or equipped to lead in those moments, they don't know how to adequately follow. So they usually just don't show up. And that's a shame. I wish that more of them would be willing to just come and offer support and get behind other activists and organizers and people who are leading stuff on the ground, especially instead of being picked off or manipulated by the power structure. So they let the people go out and do all of that work. Then they show up and smile and do a photo op and then come to the room and then get picked off because they don't know half of the stuff that's going on in the room. And then they come out of there talking about everything's going to be better. But you got some legit points, man. It's just a whole lot of layers to that thing. And I feel like we are better off highlighting the preachers that are out there and trying to build relationships with them than just sitting up there talking about what the church is not doing as a whole.
I think that he's right in terms of highlighting those people. I think we should always do that. We should celebrate the people who do actually show up, who are actually doing the work. And there are some people out there. But I also think that we have to recognize that some people are just not interested in doing that work as well, right? And that's okay. You think about, from my perspective at least, mostly in America, we think about our civil rights and social justice history, most every movement has been born out of church, Black church specifically, until Black Lives Matter, right? So I think there was a change and there was a shift in terms of what church, general, broad terms, what's focused on. And so I think to Dr. Fisher's point about, prosperity gospel and let me get the biggest church and let me, talk about all this other material stuff, that kind of is what happened. I think a lot of people got sidetracked. And so when it comes to issues of justice, this ain't sexy, right? This is not something that people really love to talk about and be out there in the street, actually trying to get policies changed, trying to advocate for, community safety outside of armed police, slave patrolling us. Like, people are trying to figure out how to, have their lives lived with respect and decency. And I don't know that for some people is part of what they're really interested in. So, there's that. So I think we have to balance that with the people who actually are doing the work. And I think it's okay to ask those questions that you do ask of people who aren't out there. It's okay to put that question forward.
Yeah. London, you
I
go.
also want to interject that injustice. Yeah, I just also want to interject that also the reality of the situation I see from the political side is white politicians and people in power manipulate the Black church for their own benefit. One thing the Black church has done to take away its power is the fact that they're nonprofits and 501c3s. So they cannot get political. They can't tell you specifically who's the best person to actually advocate for your community or this church because they're so scared of getting their daycare funding cut from the state or the city. They too scared about pissing off the mayor and he not gonna host a Christmas program, or they scared because he promised them to open a charter school or something on their property and they don't want to say nothing because they don't want to piss them off. So we got too many politicians who are dependent, not politicians, too many preachers who are dependent on government money, so they don't want to get political to keep funding their church. And so when you let the white man's dollar infiltrate the Black church, you are going to forever have a skewed leader because he is more loyal to the dollar than he is your God and the people in his church.
And you know what's so crazy about that? Because they definitely, ain't gonna call their name. The pastors came out there, took a picture with the mayor, and you ain't see him no more. And I said, wow, so that's what this is. It's a photo shoot. So,
and how they manipulate us as politicians, like I be having pastors call me like, I'm gonna bring your opponent in the church if you don't come to church and donate, stuff like that. Like, okay, I need to come to your church because I connect with the people, but it's the unspoken expectation that if you come to somebody's church, you better write them a check. And I know I'm broke and I'm poor and I'm young, so I don't have to be throwing a bunch of pastors and stuff like that. But that was one of the biggest hurdles for me. I had good pastors like Pastor Earl and Frank. I came to your church too. That I never felt that way at all. But there are churches around here in this city that when that collection plate come in front of you and you're a politician, you better drop it in there as well. If you want to be exposed to the congregation and talk about what you're doing for the community. So it's twofold. Too many pastors are crooked and dependent on the government dollars and these supremacist politicians. And you got the other ones who are abusing those folks out here who are doing the work in the community because for whatever financial gain you're trying to get.
There's one more point that I think is important to add, just for sake of dexterity. During the civil rights movement, during the height of the civil rights movement, only 13% of Black churches were involved. So the idea that at any point in our history, the majority of the churches or the majority of the preachers were out there involved in the work is just ahistorical. So, again, I think it's important to highlight those who are trying to model and engage in the type of work that should be done. And then maybe we could change the standard. Ted is right that this work ain't chic or sexy, but we sure have made it a little bit more swaggy over the past couple of years, I'd say.
Yeah.
I agree.
And to add to this conversation where we are, one of my distresses in just dialoguing with the older generation is they always have this rhetoric of, well, why y'all don't march when blacks kill blacks?
Oh, let's not talk about that.
Why are there no riots
Man,
when black people kill black people.
man, look here. I'm gonna go.
So no,
No,
let's hit on that just a minute. How do you
okay.
begin to deal, especially with those in leadership positions? How do you deal with them who diminish what we're doing on that
So,
end just to speak to what they're saying
so
should
check
be the
this
main
out.
issue?
Check this out, right? Because I ain't got too much long. So this going back to even the George Floyd situation, because all ties into together. So as we protest downtown, mind you, I'm still from the neighborhood now. I have to go home to the neighborhood to find out that one of my classmates from Northside had been shot in the head and left in his car. Okay,
I remember
so
that.
I'm saying to myself, like, I'm fighting on two fronts. I'm fighting against police brutality, and I'm fighting to stop my people from killing me. And I tell people all the time, you can take it the way you want to take it. Every person I have ever lost to gun violence dies from a nigga who looked just like me. It wasn't no police who killed anybody I ever loved. Okay, let's make that clear. But I do stand with my people 100%. But when are we gonna stop calling each other coons and Sambo because we talking about black on black crime? Every time I have ever seen somebody mention anything about black on black crime, it goes completely left. And now you the enemy of the community. You know what I'm saying? And I don't get it. We jump for joy.
Some,
We jump crazy when the police kill us or a white person kill us. But when we killing that,
Yeah.
well, we killing each other more than, man. I'm afraid of Memphis. I'm scared of Memphis, bro.
yeah.
Well, if
All
I can
right. Let's
just
talk.
give a perspective on that, I actually was having this conversation last night with a friend of mine who's an attorney, and I was really surprised when he used the phrase "black on black crime." Right, black on black crime, in my opinion, is a racist trope because what you never hear is white on white crime. And so let's deal with the data points, let's deal with the facts, let's deal with the science, right? Because I think that's most helpful. The reason that most violent crimes against black people are committed by black people is because that's who we live by. Those are people in our communities. Those are people we are close to. If you look at the DOJ stats, Department of Justice stats, most crimes against white people, violent crimes, are committed by white people, right? But we never really hear that talking point. And I think if we really drill down on why we are seeing these particular incidences happen in our community, then we can start to kind of look at solutions. We are often very obsessed with the fruit, but we don't ask questions about the root, right? So you've seen these things happen, but we don't really get to why they're happening. I did some research on the least violent zip code in America, right? It was in Massachusetts. Here's the thing that was interesting about that zip code. 75% of the adults in that zip code had at least a bachelor's degree. 75% of them. The median income in that zip code was $180,000. It was not about race or any of those other things. It was about resources. And so wherever you have high levels of poverty, you will have high levels of crime. Those two things are inextricably bound in a capitalist context. That's the reality of what it is. I'm not saying we shouldn't have these conversations with people and figure out peaceful ways to live with each other and to exist, but we also have to look at why we're having these issues, and we have to talk about resources and means. And so I think to compare state-sanctioned violence and murder by the police, who are government-funded professionals supposed to be, and somebody who is living in poverty or has some issue with somebody, and that results in violence, I think are not comparable. So I don't think those conversations are one and the same. And I think that we have to be very careful about how we have those conversations, finding solutions to each one, right? Because each one is a problem, but they're not comparable, in my opinion.
And here's what I would say about protests in particular, because I think that's the main impetus that people use to try to suggest that people care more about one than the other. And I can speak as somebody who has organized candlelight vigils all over the city for people who have been killed by people who look like them, who have done funerals and all kind of stuff, counsel families who have been through that stuff. Here's why people protest police injustice. Because 90% of the time, when Johnny shoots Jamal, Johnny goes to jail.
Right.
He is indicted, he is tried, and most of the time convicted.
Yeah.
In Memphis and Shelby County, in the last 5 years, there have been over 30 police involved shootings. Okay.
Mhm.
There has not been one indictment. I didn't say nobody got convicted. I said there
Yeah.
ain't been one indictment. Okay. There really is no need to protest if we believe justice means somebody is indicted, somebody is tried, and somebody is convicted. That's why you don't see a whole lot of protesting when it's Johnny killing Jamal, because Johnny is going to jail.
Yeah.
But when Officer Friendly kills Frank, if Frank
Yeah.
is in Frazier, then
Yeah.
it's most likely that ain't nothing gonna happen unless what? Unless the people raise up. And I can go
Yeah.
through some particular situations, but this is not to discredit the reality of the pain and the drama and the trauma and the heartache and the evil associated with all manner of violence and murder. But let's also do this when you start talking about black folks. 450,000 black folks in the city of Memphis. 2 years ago, there were 15,000 violent crimes. That's including murder. 15,000 violent crimes. Let's say that each of them was committed by a black person. We know that ain't the case, right? But let's just say each one of them was committed by a black person. And let's just say, even though, and there's people who are on this who are lawyers and some more stuff, I see JB Smiley and Carlissa Shaw, they could tell you majority of people are repeat offenders, which is to say, if it's 15,000 crimes, it ain't 15,000 people, it's less than 15,000 people. But let's say it was 15,000 people. Then that means you got less than 5% of the black community involved in any form of criminal behavior.
Yeah.
That's less than 5%. But every time we start talking about black folks and the black folks in the killing, it's like every nigga killing every other nigga in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that ain't
Yeah.
the case. And so we're starting to ask these questions as if we need to fix the 95%.
Yeah.
But no, we really need to do targeted things to fix what's happening with the less than 5%. And that is what you really see happening. And that's part of why Ted is right, as far as I'm concerned, that the black on black crime piece is a trope. Because what happens is, as soon as you start talking about holding officers accountable, when you start talking about systemic and structural change and justice, then somebody says, you can't say nothing to them until we first do something about that. That's like saying you can't go invade Iraq unless Americans stop killing Americans. You ain't never heard nobody say that.
Right, right. So what they're saying basically in the simplest terms is that black on black crime, if you want to make that a thing, should not be a rebuttal to police brutality. That we're not saying it's not a conversation that cannot be had. We're just saying it shouldn't be had in a response to protesting to police violence against black people.
But I'm not gonna let us get away from the fact that like we need to take some personal responsibility and tell these mamas to get off the butt.
Come on, man. Come on.
In the household, take care of your kids, get up off Instagram and love and hip hop every day, and be a family. Like our grandparents were just as poor and they were not killing each other. It's not a response to why we are protesting for police officers who paychecks we pay to stop killing us. No, right? And I always check my voting record. I always vote on things to bring more accountability to the police department. But come on, guys, like we gotta have this conversation in our community amongst ourselves. We gotta clean up our own households and hold these parents and them accountable. Like I remember I was a big Kamala supporter before she was VP. People got mad at her because she started holding parents accountable for truancy. Why are they getting up out the bed, taking their kids to school? Period. Why are their kids not going to school? And if they're not going to school, getting their education, what are they going to go to? Get involved in crime and get involved in trouble. And most of the crimes now are committed by these young kids. Our juveniles are committing the most violent
16
crime.
through 21.
Period.
Like I'm killing.
So it's not that I don't discredit that the system has played a part in why violent crime is so bad in the black community, but I'm not going to use the system as a crippling excuse to what we need to clean up our own house. And so what I'm saying, all I'm saying is You know, it shouldn't be used as a response. And I agree, the system and blah, blah, all of that other stuff. But I need us Black men of influence, all of
Come
us to get
on,
back in
man.
the
Come on.
household. We got to take care of our kids. We got to come together as a community. We got to, you know, if you see Ray is at home by himself all the time, just bring him over for dinner, let him sit there versus let him be in the household, get into the streets and stuff like that. Like,
See,
where's our community?
cause y'all generation, y'all must fail to forget. You 60 and 70 babies, you forgot the neighbor whooped your ass when you messed up. You must forget about those days, and you must also forget why did they even start the Stop the Violence movement in the first place. Please do your research on both sides. Now I totally agree. We ain't got to protest when John killed Ray or whatever, but we do have to do something.
Mm-hmm. I
So
think that's what I'm trying to say.
my approach is, again, probably a little bit. It's my vantage point is a little different. I think it's easy to critique the oppressed people and not really critique the oppressive system. And so I think that these anecdotes of, you know, helping each individuals, that's cool, and we should all do what we can, right? But if we're talking about, again, systems that are in place that create inequities, and then we're seeing responses to those things, I think we don't see the change that I think both of you really want us to see until we talk about, again, what creates these situations to begin with. And so when we're talking about, like, everything from truancy to, you know, who's doing what, who's parenting their children properly, who's not, I just think these talking points to me sound like much of what I would hear on Fox News. And I think it's a way that we demonize Black folks who are, for the most part, doing what they need to do in really challenging situations and doing okay, right?
I agree with you because my daddy left the household. My parents got married, did the whole, and he left. And my mom had to raise me by herself. Now she did what she was supposed to do to keep me out the streets, keep me in extra, you know, programs or whatever. But I don't think saying we need our daddies in the household to get these boys and girls to sit down and act right is being conservative or being on Fox News. It's about cleaning up our own house. And we got
But it is, but London, it is misconstruing the
we
facts.
not mis
Because one of the facts is that Black men are more active in the lives of their children than parents of other ethnicities. Okay, this doesn't mean that there ain't no Black men that need to be reeled in and called into the house, right? This ain't saying that. Just like it ain't saying that there ain't nobody who out there killing and shooting folks. There's 300 plus homicides in Memphis and Shelby County, right? So we know that this stuff happens. I think the point that
it's one of the reasons these things are happening. I'm not saying we don't focus on changing the system to make it better for us so that we won't have all of these disadvantages and things like that. But where is our mama Pookie and grandpa so-and-so and mamas and daddies who are coming together as a community? Where's the church for us to stop it? We have the power to stop this. And
we do.
we can't think that because we're having this conversation at the family dinner table that means we not go together as a family, fight our oppressors outside the household. But while we in the house right now, I want us to get our shit together so when we walk out that household, all of us are armed, all of us are strapped, ready to fight the oppressor. But how we go fight them? We ain't cleaned up our own house. Where are our guns in the own household together?
But what I'm saying is the vast majority of Black folks are taking care of their business. Yes. Okay, look, I can ask you right now how many Black folks you know, and then I'm asking you how many killers you know. Okay, how many Black folks in your neighborhood? Right, hold up.
Don't ask me that, Reverend.
I am gonna ask you because if you do the math, bruh, okay. I'm not saying I know. Look, I know I got folk. I got.
I'm with these people every day. I live in this environment. We talking about, bro. You think poverty is the only reason why these folks doing the killing? No, sir, buddy.
I don't think nobody said, Amos, that poverty is the only reason.
The poverty, you know what I'm saying? I know you mentioned on that line.
Here, right. And what I'm hearing, Ted can correct me if I'm wrong, and Amos, I ain't trying to cut you short, brother. I'm saying this. We're not saying that poverty is the only reason. We're saying if you want to talk about what it means to impact this from a community standpoint, that's something you have to keep in the conversation. It's not simply niggas don't know how to act. Okay,
Oh, correct.
it is a social engineering of sorts. Like, so I remember, because you talked about the 70s and the 80s. Man, I was born in 78, right? So I grew up in the 80s. I remember watching New Jack City, and one of the things that stuck out to me is when Nino Brown said, "Hey man, ain't no Uzis made in her." How is niggas getting Dracos in Fraser?
Oh,
Where you think they
correct.
getting? They ain't manufacturing this stuff.
Yeah.
No, they
Ain't,
not.
Yeah.
ain't no Winchester rifles being manufactured on
Yeah.
We
Elvis
need not
Presley.
get those out. We need some work.
So what I'm
I
suggesting
mean,
is
I'm someone.
why is it easier to get access to drugs and guns than it is to get access to a livable wage job and an equitable education?
You know why?
That's a basic question, right?
Yeah.
So now what we're saying is, because really, to be honest, I'm amazed that black folks ain't more reckless, having
Mm.
gone through all of the hell we done been through, having
Mm.
all of the disadvantage and the social inequities that we have to deal with. I'm
Yeah.
like, shit, there should be more killers out there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
more niggas should be doing more stuff. I'm glad that they're not, right? Thanks
Right.
be unto God that they're not.
About killing, but kill the right
But
person. I'm killing.
but the
Because
question is, why is it happening? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are there so many starfish on the seashore?
we too we the most educated generation in history. We know why this stuff happened. These little niggas killing each other can also Google what needs to be done. They not stupid. Like I don't think we're saying that this isn't engineered for us. All I'm saying is, don't let this be an excuse of why we ain't cleaning up our own household. But
I
we're
don't
not.
think
When we
nobody
say,
is
when
saying
somebody come
it's
to me
an
about black on
excuse.
black crime, now, but I think we need to address black on black crime without talking about the system. There needs to be another conversation. We need to talk about what y'all go do to stop killing each other in our own community, despite some of these issues we have. What
London,
what
that
else can
only
we do to come
makes
together?
logical sense if we are agreeing that black people are engaged in some inhumane behavior that other human beings aren't engaged in. I'm not conceding that point. I'm saying that we are more prone to do it only when we are more prone to get access to drugs and guns than we are a job with an equitable education.
Yeah.
So I see right now, Carlissa, and her and I have had this conversation too. She's saying, you know, most of our people don't have conflict resolution skills. That's true, okay? Why don't we have conflict resolution skills? And are we suggesting that somehow white folks in Collierville got better conflict resolution skills? You can't even stand on the corner with a sign without some white person coming up there talking noise to you because they don't have conflict resolution skills either. But they also have easier access to equitable education and a decent paying job. I'm not going to concede the point because the numbers just don't show it that black folks are actually more criminal. Actually, the numbers show black folks are less likely to be criminal, but more likely to get arrested.
Yep.
But then y'all want me to forfeit the conversation about structural injustice to
Yeah.
center the conversation about black criminality and inhumanity when black folks is just human beings who sometimes do some reckless stuff like other human beings do. I want to see the crime rate go down. Nobody wants to see it go down more than me. I want to see families being made more whole. Nobody wants to see that more than me. But I'm not going to concede the point because it's not true that black folks have some special
You know what I think
type
it
of
is
ease.
though, real.
What's that?
I think it's all based on our environment personally. You know, because I'm in a totally different environment than y'all. Like I see this each and every day, so it affects me a little different. You know what I'm saying? You know, not saying that you don't see it because you're from Memphis too. You're from the neighborhood, but you know you're in a different space now. But I'm around this each and every day. I'm talking about our brothers are getting shot down by each
Yeah.
other like dogs,
Yeah.
bro. What do you
Yeah.
what do you not seeing? We talking about Draco's ooh da 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 killing innocent people in every city. I travel the world each and every weekend. I see this in every city I go to. Us killing each other, bro. I don't care about the white community. I don't care about the rest of the community. I'm talking about our people. I shouldn't have to ride around my own hometown and be afraid for my life because I think somebody gonna rob me, bro. I shouldn't have to feel like that. And you
That's
can't
true.
tell me you feel 100% safe right here in this city, bro. You can't
No,
tell me that.
And
no,
my
I
girl
don't think
Elizabeth put fact in there that the main
the
cause of
number
death for
one
black
cause
men
of homicide. But look,
is homicide.
ain't nobody that the number one cause of black men under the age of 44 is homicide. Nobody's saying that it's not. Okay. But again, let's talk about the entire calculation. Now, let me go back to you, Amos. You right, bro. Right? You shouldn't have to ride through the hood and feel that way. Okay. And I live in White Haven. I live in Black Haven, bro. I don't know who niggas think I am. Like I'm
Right.
in these situations. I'm with some of these niggas. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
like for real,
Right.
man. I ain't one of them cats. I just ain't. Okay. And so,
Correct.
and so I know that to be the case. Do I feel 100% safe? No, I'm a black man in America. I don't feel 100% safe nowhere.
Correct.
Am I afraid to walk down Shelby Drive or Airways or Rains or Winchester? Hell no, I'm not,
Yeah.
because I know black folks generally ain't engaged in some random act of violence. I know that even the statistic that Carlissa has brought up that we love to highlight. Now let's talk about how many of those homicides happen because people know each other and has
Mm-hmm.
beef. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because the niggas who I know, not let me take some, most niggas I know ain't shooting indiscriminately. Now
Mm-hmm.
I will agree, Amos, because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s where the G code was a little bit different.
Right.
Okay. Niggas wasn't just shooting randomly in crowds or randomly at kids or these sorts of things. Like it was rules of engagement. And
Mm-hmm.
so now it's a lot more reckless. And then we would have to ask why. Well, maybe if niggas is getting their hands on extra artillery and extra potent drugs, okay, that you can get access to. Like I didn't know niggas wasn't doing meth at 13 where I'm from.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
they weren't popping perks in the 80s and the
That's
90s.
true. Absolutely true.
You see what I'm saying?
I,
So
and I
so
don't like
all,
how the rappers are pushing it either. I think it's ridiculous. I agree. You know, but I just think that we are trying to that we are trying to pick what we want to solve in that problem. And right now we need to solve what's going on in our house while simultaneously solving what's going on in our house. And then what goes back to my main point. That's why you got people like me in positions to change the law, to help change the structure. We got folks like you in positions of being a celebrity who can get with these rappers, be like, why you always got to rap about Percocets and Xanax and cough syrup and lean and all of that stuff, like that shit cool. That shit ain't cool. White folks used to only do that shit. Now we doing it. You know, I don't like that. You know, but at the same time, Earl, you in the community telling us how to get together, how to come together, how to use the church of influence, how to push back against the system, how to educate people. But I'm not gonna let us jump over the fact that we need to have an in-house conversation. That doesn't neglect the social engineering of, you know, taking out jobs and all the stuff in the black community. But black people, my mama would never let me walk out the house not straight, period.
mhm.
And we need to have more people like that in our own community. Like, no, you ain't straight if you think that it's cool. I remember this weekend, I was out and I saw a black dude was about to start an argument with another black guy, talking about he about to get his boys and run up on because he couldn't use the fucking bathroom.
Mhm,
What?
mhm.
You're in a group with a whole bunch of, and you about to
Maybe he had to go real bad.
use the bathroom? Like, nah, like these folks are wild in the
They
streets, and some got to be done. But
But
it's
they-
they
our
are
to do that.
they are definitely both conversations that need to be had. My original premise was this is that we cannot allow anybody to allow there to be a rebuttal
Mhm.
to police brutality in the black community. While we must have this
Yeah.
conversation about what we're doing in our house, that cannot be a rebuttal or a comeback for what's going on with the police.
And here,
That
and
was
here,
the original premise
that's right,
Right.
Frank.
of
And here's what I
of the
think is
conversation.
here's what I think is critically important as we can review how this conversation has shifted. Here's
Yeah.
the fact: 90% of the time, when you have a conversation, this is how it ends up diverging, and we should ask why.
Hmm.
But why is it right? Because I don't, I know I have conversations with all kind of people all over the place, all kind of mentalities, and 90% of them are the ones saying we need to focus on what's happening at home. 90% of them ain't the ones saying. Now 90% of the ones tweeting, maybe, but the common conversation is going to be you need to straighten it up at the house. Black folks ain't doing enough, and so on and so forth. And if you think about it, if you go back and catalog how much of this conversation we had that was about structural and systemic stuff prior to you introducing this part, Frank, versus how much we done talked about this particular part over the last 30 minutes, then that's general conversation. And we should ask ourselves why it ends up happening like this.
Yeah. And I was just solely talking about the energy. I really wasn't saying we got to protest when a black person killer. Like this two different fields, bro.
Yeah, but I got what you were saying.
We definitely need to, put some energy over there though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
I think this has been interesting exchanges. Again, my thinking about it is that we have to be able to have these conversations. I won't say separate and apart, but really deal with what the fundamental issue is in each particular conversation. And so when we talk about like fixing our own communities and doing the things we need to do, again, in my opinion, it still goes back to resources because I'm from Memphis. I live in Atlanta, and so Atlanta is tied for cities where Black people do really well, right? With DC. So looking at Black affluent communities, I don't see the levels of crime that I see in poor communities. And which the other thing is, let's also, we're not talking about them, but in poor white communities, you see crime as well, right? Because those things are inextricably bound. And I think unless and until we start having conversations about resources, how we are able to move away from these increased numbers of violence, we're going to keep spinning our wheels and going in circles. Because if it is not a conversation of resources and feeling hopeless and feeling like you're able to, live with dignity, then that would just suggest that Black people are genetically predisposed to being more violent, right? It's in our genes. And that's just not the truth. So again, we have to look at everything that's happening that shapes our communities. Paraphrasing, because we're kind of telling, each other, telling Black people we need to fix ourselves and fix our problems. And I do think we have to be actively engaged in solutions that help to benefit our problems or correct our problems or remedy our problems. But King did talk about how cruel it was to tell a man to pull himself up by his bootstrap when he has no boots. And so we have to really look at this, I think, in a way that speaks to what is the real catalyst for the violence or the crime that we are seeing in our communities, right? And how do we find helpful, practical remedies to bring those numbers down?
Yeah. All right, let's shift. Stalemate on that one. We got a little progress going. Lady J, right quick, play that clip of Farrakhan for us, please.
March on Washington in 1963. The cry was jobs and justice. In the 20-year anniversary of the March on Washington, the cry was jobs and justice. We are now in 2010. And what is the cry? Jobs and justice. Well, wait a minute. How long are you going to sit around begging white people to do for us what we have the power to do for ourselves?
All right. So the question now becomes, are we going about it the wrong way? Are we asking the wrong people to liberate us? What can we do ourselves to help ourselves get free and get out of this continuous circle that we're in?
The brother minister, who I got love and respect for, is right when you're thinking about national politics, because the majority of the country is white. Come here, Memphis. And I'm like, Carl, listen, I want to have 6 conversations at the same time. but come here, Memphis, because when you start talking about adequate allocation of resources. This is to Ted's point. The majority of the people in this city are Black folks.
Yep.
So it is not begging white folks for our slice of the pie. It is demanding what contractually we are owed from the government. Okay. So this ain't some begging. Now, here's the other thing that I was saying. I tried to say a little bit of it earlier. Farrakhan and the group would talk about us building our own stuff, but they never tell us to stop paying taxes to the government, which means the only way you're going to get some of these independent things, which is ultimately going to be having your own government, is to be double taxed. Now, there are way too many folks, and London was making this point earlier, way too many folks who they paycheck depend on benevolence from white folks. So do you think that you're going to get all of the Black folks who work at FedEx to stand up tomorrow and say, we're going to abandon this system and go into the other system? No, we got way too many Ben Carsons and Clarence Thomases and Candace Owens out there. It's just way too many of them. So you got to come up with a different strategy, right? And so the strategy for me has been, since we are in the city majority, that's why it's up to vote 901 and not just up to vote generally. In this county and city, the majority of the people in here are Black. So the majority of the resources need to go to Black folk.
I agree with that 100%.
So I would say this. I won't. I think those are great points. I echo those points. I think that to the point that was made, I have personal challenges with Minister Farrakhan, but that's a different conversation, right? And I think
Different conversation. Stay on target.
Okay, all right, I'll stay on target. I won't go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, I agree with what Dr. Fisher said in principle, and I think that I'm making an analogy, right? So I had a white friend of mine who wanted to meet to have a conversation. So I was like, okay, that's cool. Let's meet at a restaurant. So we went to meet at a restaurant and we were discussing systemic racism, and he didn't understand kind of what that meant. White privilege, what we were discussing. So I asked him, when I asked you to meet me at this restaurant, did you think about how you're going to get in the restaurant? And he said, no. If you were in a wheelchair and it was a place you had never been to, do you think you would have thought about how you're going to get in? He said, probably so. All right, well, there was a point in time in America where folks were building buildings without consideration for people who were in wheelchairs. So they didn't have access to those spaces. What those people did is they complained to people who wrote building codes to have those building codes rewritten to give them access. Here's the point. The people who rewrote the building codes were not people in wheelchairs, right? But they were people with the power to make the change that was needed to give them access. So Black people are not asking for special privileges. We're asking for access to the same stuff everybody else has, right? But because of the way the system was built, it was built to intentionally lock us out. So the people who now have that power, that equity, that power to change that need to do the things that are necessary. And we have to continue to push them in order to do these things. So I'm not, for those who are separatists, that's fine. I'm not a separatist. I live here. My foreparents built this country. I deserve to be here as much as anybody else. And I deserve the things that I should have had, that I should have as a descendant of those people and a citizen of this country. And so when we're talking about, jobs and justice, yes, we do have to demand those things. But looking at a study that came out of Duke from seven professors that talks about the racial wealth gap, you can have Black-owned businesses. We can go to college. We can own land. We can own bank Black. None of those things is going to close the racial wealth gap, right? We have to have a form of reparations to repair us as a people group, full stop, period. That's what we need, and that's what we must demand. And folks can't figure it out. It's just too confusing. They can figure out how to give trillions of dollars to people during the pandemic, just like that. But you can't figure out how to give people, Black people, what they need, deserve in this country. Yeah. It's just that we have to continue to make that noise, make those demands until we get what we deserve.
Real talk. London?
Yeah, I agree. I'm 100% support of reparations. I think Ted said it very eloquently. If I had the opportunity to vote on it or be able to push it, I would do it in a heartbeat. And like I said to his earlier point, I definitely believe it should be in the form of Black folks should not be taxed for the rest of our life, state or federal. free education,
Yeah.
free college, free healthcare access. I don't believe reparations is a check that you give to somebody, but it is allowing us to have free access to the social services and the social structures that were put in place to make it harder for us. So it's going to be real hard, but I know Congressman Cohen from Memphis sits on a committee to study reparations. He held a hearing last year on reparations, and it was a very insightful conversation. So I'm there with you. I have no complaints about this. So, Ted, you did a great job talking about it.
Thank you. I want to check
When
too.
And they done gave the check to all of the other ethnicities that have gotten reparations. So yes, it's a both and, not an either or.
economically, was
I'm out.
desegregation good for black people?
Ooh, I don't want to talk about that on record.
I understand you can be silent.
All right, so I think this. I think that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so when you think about like things like the Harlem Renaissance and what happened during that period, when Black people could not access certain spaces or certain things, they did build their own hotels, banks, businesses, etc. And so desegregation did impact that in many ways because some people want to be in other spaces that they feel make them appear maybe more valuable or successful or whatever that looks like for them. And so I've not seen any, analytical study on this to look at kind of what the implications were financially for Black people in general. But I do tend to think that desegregation in some ways could have adversely affected Black folks, especially Black business owners.
Fish?
Yeah, not really much to add to that. It's actually a trick question because you're asking people, was it better for you not to have options? Or is it better that you have options and now choose to spread your resources around in ways that ultimately dilute your economic power, right? But who else is asked not to, spread their way? I mean, why do we keep asking niggas to do all of this extra stuff? What is it like? What is wrong with us? Like, why do we always got to single out how Negroes act as if Negroes act some kind of way because we are biologically inferior? We act the way human beings act in general. But who else has had to manage the legal codes and the systemic? I know y'all hate that term because we're supposed to be talking about everybody's individual responsibilities. Okay. But this, look, I mean, there are books, there are studies about this type of stuff. And The Color of Law comes to mind. It's a book by a brother named Richard Rothstein. And he actually talks about how the real estate market, starts from the end of enslavement for Black folks. And now you got Black folks relegated to these spaces where they're taking resources out of it and all of this other stuff, right? So this is where we, to your point, Ted, start to come up with these genius forms of engineering, social engineering, and things of that nature to build our communities and all of that. But let's just say you get Black Wall Street like you have in Tulsa. If you don't have the legal and governmental apparatus to support it, white folks come in and burn it down. Okay. And so even without desegregation, you end up having Black economic exploitation. So for me, it's a trick question because at the end of the day, Black folks should not have to choose between whether or not we're going to isolate and separate ourselves in order to build our economic wealth, or whether we're going to integrate into a system and have more options. But hey, the Shelby County the Memphis City and the Shelby County receipt record will show you that white folks just don't spend money with Black folks like Black folks spend money with white folks.
Yep. Yeah. Well, listen, I'm gonna get ready to let y'all go. I ain't gonna hold y'all too much longer. I know Earl tapping out on me. He been complaining about the time all night, y'all. But all right. So look, lightning round. Here we go. Hey, everybody can unmute your mic because we just chime in as we please. Lightning round. I'm a say a name or a thing or a phrase, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind or how you feel about this particular thing. The first word is redlining. Redlining. The first word.
White folks.
London, you ain't gonna say nothing. You ain't gonna say nothing on the lightning round.
I think it should
You
be
finally done got your camera to be halfway decent.
Finally.
Yes.
That thing was pixelated, boy.
It was. It's terrible. And my makeup done, so y'all can't even see it. But no, it should be unconstitutional. Industries that are found to discriminate should be held accountable by the law.
All right. Xenophobia.
Fear.
America.
White supremacy.
Economic empowerment.
Black liberation.
Fatter paycheck.
What'd you say, London? I ain't hear the first part.
Bigger paychecks.
Ted, none.
Teachable moment.
Marcus Garvey.
Pan-Africanism. RBG.
I'm gonna go visit, but I am gonna stay in America.
Now, who got a dog? That's London. I know it.
Yeah, I
Single
would say
black woman with a dog.
African diaspora.
Malcolm X.
Brother Malcolm. Prophet.
This okay. Prophet.
He didn't get the credit he deserves.
When you say that, what you mean?
You said lightning round. You can't be doing follow-ups, nigga.
No. Hold on. This is my show. Thank you. London, when you say that, what you mean?
I think that we oftentimes put MLK on a pedestal as the face of the Black movement. I think Malcolm X had a lot of great points that would have helped us out equally as much. And he doesn't get the accolades and the support that MLK does. And I think he should be equally a celebrated individual.
That's real.
They gonna play that back, London. You ain't gonna let that down. That's gonna be
The president telling us to stand back and stand by.
Brother Malcolm was amazing, but Brother Malcolm was problematic in some ways, especially as it relates to sexism. That's a different conversation.
Greenwood.
Black excellence.
Mississippi.
Black money. All right. Donald Trump.
Who?
The Black Church.
Reform.
That's interesting.
That is one. God. I think I want to say. I don't know what I want to say.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, I know. That's one.
Yeah, that's tough.
Come
it's
on.
So hard.
So
Come on.
it's a phrase. It's not a word, and it's true. The only autonomous institution in the Black community, and when it's functioning at its best, you can't beat it.
Ted.
I would say the birthplace of great Black art.
I gotta add now, and the birthplace of over 200 slave revolts.
Yeah. That's real. Memphis, Tennessee.
1988.
You disrespectful. You disrespectful.
forever.
That must be some inside joke I'm too old to know about. I just say, I'ma say made me and Lemoyne College.
I would say Memphis is the birthplace of Black culture in the South.
I'm gonna say home. I'm gonna add in on that home.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'm from. Well, look, thank y'all for joining me tonight. We're short of 2 hours. Thank y'all so much for being on my little show.
Thank
I
you.
knew a lot of people was not going to tune in tonight because we don't like to talk about this kind of stuff, but it's a needed conversation. And I'm grateful for you all's presence. I value your time. Congrats again, Representative Lamar, on your re-election. That's big. That's major. I look forward to seeing what you do during your term. Thank you so much, Ted, for being on. Amos had to run and do something else. My brother Fisher, thank you so much.
Hey, send me some of the contact information. I want to keep up with Ted and Amos. Them some good people. I don't know why they hang with you. I don't know how you got connected.
What you mean?
You know,
See that?
Must have been a friend shortage or something. And then they was
Big
like,
brothers say disrespectful stuff like
no,
that.
you
all
might
the
got me. I
time.
appreciate you. I appreciate you.
It made me want to go to his church, and I don't even go to Pope's church like that.
Listen, everybody who's watching, thank you. Miss Shaw, I saw you on the line coming, doing your thing. You and Earl was back and forth. That's
Hey,
always
Virgie.
funny. That's always funny to me. Listen, thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the show that's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, frankly speaking. I'll holla.
Peace.